Once upon a time, 3 brothers left their home, each eager to discover riches and adventure in the wide world beyond. The 2 eldest were confident and careless, believing that wisdom alone would carry them to success. They laughed at the smallest of their brothers, a quiet little dwarf, thinking him too simple and weak to endure the journey ahead. Yet the youngest, though diminutive and often underestimated, carried a gentle heart and an unwavering sense of fairness. Undeterred by his brother's mockery, he set out with them, stepping lightly yet thoughtfully along the winding path. As they walked, the brothers came upon a bustling ant-hill. The older siblings, in their usual thoughtless fashion, considered upsetting the tiny creatures to watch them scramble in panic. But the little dwarf shook his head firmly. "Let them be," he said softly. "They, too, deserve to live their lives in peace." And so the brothers continued onward, the contrast between cruelty and compassion already shaping the journey that lay before them. As the brothers wandered further, they came upon a sparkling lake where graceful ducks floated on the calm water. The elder siblings whispered of catching them, roasting them over a fire, and enjoying a feast. But the little dwarf shook his head, his eyes gentle but firm. "Let them swim in peace," he said. "They, too, have the right to live freely." And so they passed on, leaving the ducks unharmed, their wings glinting in the sunlight. Not long after, they discovered a great tree, its hollow buzzing with bees. Golden honey oozed down its trunk. Again, the elder brothers considered lighting a fire, destroying the hive to take the honey. But the dwarf held them back, his small hand steady. "Let these little creatures enjoy their work," he insisted, "and we shall not harm them." With kindness guiding their steps, the 3 brothers soon reached a magnificent castle. The stables held majestic horses, but each one was carved from marble. No human stirred within the grounds. Inside the castle, they wandered through silent halls until they noticed an old man sitting quietly at a table. They called to him once, twice, but he did not stir. On the 3rd call, he rose and approached them silently. Without a word, he led the brothers to a table laden with delicious food. They ate heartily, then were shown to separate rooms to rest. The following morning, the old man revealed 3 magical tablets, each containing a task that could break the castle's enchantment. The eldest brother tried first. He searched for pearls hidden beneath the moss, but could not find them all. As foretold, he turned into stone. The second brother took his turn, but only succeeded in finding a portion of the pearls. He too was transformed into marble. Now the path was clear for the little dwarf. He understood that kindness, patience, and respect for life would guide him where others had failed. At last, it was the youngest brother's turn. The little dwarf, whose heart had always been kind. He set out to complete the tasks, his mind steady and his spirit gentle. First, he searched for the 1,000 pearls buried beneath the soft green moss. The work was tiring, and the stones were hidden well. He sat on a rock, his small hands resting on his knees, feeling the weight of the impossible task. Suddenly, the ground trembled softly, and from the earth emerged thousands of tiny ants, the same creatures he had once spared from harm. Together, they searched swiftly and diligently, gathering every pearl until none remained behind. Next, he came to the lake, where the water rippled in the morning light. The 2 ducks he had protected swam gracefully toward him, diving deep beneath the surface. With a splash and a glimmer, they brought up the key he needed, returning it into his eager hands. The final task was the most difficult: to choose the youngest and sweetest of the king's 3 daughters. All 3 were fair and beautiful, and each appeared exactly the same. But he remembered the queen bee, the one he had saved from the fire. The tiny queen flew from flower to flower, then settled upon the lips of the youngest princess. The dwarf smiled, knowing he had made the right choice. With the tasks completed, the spell that had turned so many into stone was lifted. His elder brothers, once cold and unyielding, stirred back to life. The castle brightened with joy, and harmony returned to the halls. The little dwarf married the youngest princess, whose heart matched his own in kindness and courage. He would rule wisely beside her, just as the old man had foretold his elder brothers, humbled by their failures, married the remaining 2 sisters, and the family was united once more. From that day forward, the castle thrived, filled with laughter, warmth, and justice. And all who had been spared or aided remembered that a gentle heart and acts of compassion would always be rewarded. Long ago, in a quiet village, there lived a wealthy man and his beloved wife. Though they shared love and laughter, their hearts carried a deep sorrow. They had no children. The wife prayed each day, and again each night, hoping for a child to fill their home with joy. In front of their house grew a lone juniper-tree, its branches bending with age and the weight of winter snow. One cold day, as she stood beneath the tree peeling apples, she pricked her finger, and bright red blood fell upon the white snow. Oh, how I longed long for a child," she whispered, "as red as blood and as white as snow." Her heart felt lighter as she spoke these words, and she returned home with a gentle smile, believing her wish might soon come true. Seasons changed. Winter melted into spring. Buds became branches, and blossoms began to fall in the warm sunlight. At last, the time came. The wife gave birth to a son, perfectly red as blood and white as snow. But joy was mingled with sorrow. The happiness of holding her child was the last she would ever know. Before another month passed, her spirit left her body, and the father, with a heart heavy with grief, laid her to rest beneath the juniper-tree, weeping for the loss of his beloved wife. The tree stood tall and silent, a witness to both love and loss, and a promise of the strange, magical events yet to come. Some years had passed, and the sorrow of the father softened only a little, though the memory of his beloved wife lingered in every corner of the house. Time moved quietly onward, and the lonely man eventually married again. His new wife was fair of face, yet her heart harbored envy and ambition, a longing to control both house and children. Soon, the household changed. The father's love, once whole, now had to be shared, and the new wife bore him a daughter, a delicate little girl with bright eyes, soft curls, and laughter that could warm any room. The stepmother loved her own child deeply, but she could not endure the thought of her husband showing affection or admiration to the boy of the first wife. Every smile, every kind word from the father was a thorn in her heart, a reminder of what she could not take. The boy, red as blood and white as snow, grew strong, clever, and gentle. He studied with diligence, helped those in need, and carried himself with a sweetness that earned him love wherever he went. Yet every step he took, every kind gesture he offered, was watched with suspicion by the stepmother. Her envy festered, growing darker with each passing day. Even the servants whispered of her coldness, though none dared to speak against her openly. At first, she used harsh words to assert control, then cruel tasks to bend him to her will. He was sent to fetch water from the well in bitter winter, to clean floors before dawn, to carry heavy burdens his small frame could barely bear. His meals were meager, his rest stolen by endless orders. Yet the boy endured, his gentle heart unbroken, his eyes still full of kindness. He never returned anger for anger, nor cruelty for cruelty, though sorrow weighed upon him like a stone. The little daughter watched quietly, At first, she did not understand the depth of cruelty, but soon her young heart recognized the injustice. Her love for her brother grew fierce and protective, even as she feared the wrath of their stepmother. Tension grew in the house like a storm cloud. Walls that once echoed laughter now held whispers of fear, and the air felt thick with unspoken threats. Yet outside, the juniper-tree remained steadfast, its branches swaying gently in the wind, as if keeping silent watch over the children. Its green needles whispered of patience and of hope that one day fairness and love would return. Though the boy's life was filled with hardship, kindness and goodness had not vanished entirely. He would endure, and those with eyes to see and hearts to act would one day notice the cruelty and intervene. One day, the little girl, Marlene, ran eagerly to her mother's side in the storeroom. "Mother," she said, "may I have an apple?" The stepmother handed her a bright, shiny apple. But as soon as Marlene looked away, the mother's heart twisted with envy. She snatched the apple from the girl's hands and locked it away, declaring that it could only be given to the boy first. When the boy entered the room, he greeted his mother with a kind smile. "May I have an apple?" he asked innocently. The stepmother's eyes gleamed with a cruel thought, and she smiled kindly at him, though her heart plotted something dark. "Come closer," she said, and led him toward the large chest in the corner. "Choose an apple for yourself," she urged. The boy bent down to pick one, but in that instant, the lid of the chest fell with a terrible crash. Horror struck the girl Marlene. She screamed, and the room seemed to shiver with fear. Her little brother lay still, his head separated from his body. Tears poured from her eyes, her cries echoing through the house. The stepmother's face remained calm, but inside, panic and dread churned. She thought quickly, what if anyone discovers this terrible deed? With trembling hands, she bound the boy's head with a white handkerchief, hiding the evidence of her crime. Then she took the boy's body and, with ruthless precision, prepared a black pudding in the kitchen. She placed his pieces in the pot, stirring the mixture carefully, while little Marlene wept beside her, her tears falling into the pot. Even in her sorrow, the child's love for her brother infused the dish, making it more bitter than anything else in the world. The father returned home, unaware of the tragedy. He sat to eat, asking with concern, "Where is my son?" The stepmother answered calmly, "Gone to visit relatives for some weeks. He will be well cared for." Marlene, unable to remain silent, pointed at her brother's chair and whispered, "Mother, he sits there, pale, and will not answer me. The stepmother's eyes widened in alarm, but she pressed her lips together, determined to keep the secret. Fear and sorrow filled the house. Marlene could barely breathe, and the horror of what had occurred hung over the family like a dark cloud. Every glance, every step was heavy with the weight of dread. And yet, even in the midst of despair, the boy's spirit remained. Marlene's love, unwavering and pure, would soon set in motion a chain of magic and justice that would turn tragedy into retribution and sorrow into hope. Marlene's small hands trembled as she carried the silk handkerchief, wrapped carefully around the scattered bones of her little brother. Her tears had not ceased, falling freely onto the grass as she approached the old juniper-tree. The wind whispered through the branches, as if the tree itself felt the sorrow in her heart. Gently, she laid the bones beneath its green canopy, her sobs mingling with the rustling leaves. As she stepped back, a strange hush fell over the garden. The air grew thick and shimmering, and a soft, golden light seemed to rise from the earth. The juniper-tree shivered and swayed, its branches intertwining as if clasping hands in joy. Then, in a sudden blaze of warmth and fire, a magnificent bird burst forth from the mist. Its feathers glimmered with red and green. Its neck shone like burnished gold, and its eyes sparkled like two bright stars. The bird hovered above the ground, singing a song so beautiful and haunting that the echoes seemed to carry the very grief of the world. "My mother killed her little son," it cried in a clear, unwavering voice. "My father grieved when I was gone. My sister loved me best of all. She laid my handkerchief over me and took my bones that they might lie beneath the juniper-tree." Marlene gasped in wonder, her heart lifting as if her brother's spirit now surrounded her. The bird circled gracefully, its wings slicing through the air with power and purpose. It carried the chain, the shoes, and even the millstone, tokens of justice yet to be delivered. The magical bird did not simply sing for beauty. It had come with intention, a promise of retribution for the cruel stepmother. Its bright eyes scanned the village, measuring the hearts and deeds of those who dwelled there. Marlene watched, awestruck, as the bird's song filled the air, a mixture of sorrow, hope, and righteous anger. It perched on the roof of a nearby house, and with each note, the story of the boy's innocence and the stepmother's evil spread like wildfire. The wind seemed to answer the bird, whispering secrets of the household, carrying the truth to every ear that would listen. Even the trees, the stones, and the distant river seemed to vibrate with the song of justice. The bird's sharp gaze and graceful movements made it clear that punishment was near. It prepared to deliver the millstone, to right the wrongs of the past, and to restore peace to the boy's family. Marlene's heart was filled with hope. Though sorrow had marked her days, the juniper-tree and its magical bird had given her courage. She knew that soon the darkness would lift, and justice, long delayed, would finally be served. The boy's spirit, the love of a devoted sister, and the power of the magical juniper-tree had joined to create a force no cruelty could withstand. The bird spread its wings wide, ready to carry out the long-awaited retribution. The bird circled high above the village, its sharp eyes fixed on the house where cruelty had taken root. Then, with a swift and powerful dive, it descended upon the stepmother, carrying the millstone, heavy as the weight of her guilt. With a sudden crash, the stone fell upon her head. The house shook with the impact, and a terrible silence followed. The stepmother lay still, her reign of fear ended forever. Inside, the father and little Marlene heard the commotion. They rushed outside, hearts pounding, and beheld the miraculous bird perched majestically above the fallen stone. Its feathers glimmered in the sunlight, and its song rang out clear and strong. My mother killed her little son. My father grieved when I was gone. My sister loved me best of all. She laid my handkerchief over me and took my bones that they might lie beneath the juniper-tree. The father's eyes widened in astonishment as he looked toward the juniper-tree. There, wrapped in the silk handkerchief, lay the bones of his lost son, whole and untouched. Marlene ran forward, tears streaming, her joy mixing with relief and amazement. The bird circled again, then carefully laid the chain around the father's neck and dropped the pair of red shoes before Marlene's feet. It sang one final time, its voice carrying both warning and triumph. Injustice has ended, love and truth endure. The innocent are never forgotten. The father embraced Marlene, holding her close as he whispered words of comfort. Then, with trembling hands, he gathered his son from beneath the juniper-tree. The boy's eyes opened, bright and alive, and he smiled at his sister and father, as if waking from a long, dark dream. Marlene laughed and cried at the same time, her heart overflowing with happiness. She kissed her brother on the cheek, and the two children danced around the juniper-tree, their joy a beacon of life restored. The father knelt beside the tree, his gratitude deep and unending. He looked at the bird, still perched on a branch, and said softly, "Thank you, mysterious guardian. You have brought back what was lost and punished what was wicked." The bird's eyes gleamed like stars, and with a graceful flap of its wings, it rose into the sky, singing one last triumphant song. It hovered for a moment, as if blessing the reunited family, then disappeared into the horizon, leaving behind peace, justice, and joy. The house, once shadowed by fear, now glowed with warmth and light. The father, son, and daughter sat together, sharing stories, laughter, and food. The dark days had ended, and a new chapter of love and harmony had begun, all under the watchful branches of the ancient Juniper-Tree. The wind slowed, the trees stood still, and from the fading light, the magical bird returned. Her wings shimmered like gold dust in the air. Her voice, calm, deep, almost ancient. She sang softly, "All things return, all deeds come home, all hearts are seen." In her claws, 3 gifts shone: a golden chain, a pair of silver shoes, and a millstone, small but heavy with purpose. She looked down at them, the innocent, the wanderer, and the one who had taken more than he ever gave. First, she flew to the innocent child. Her song turned gentle, almost a whisper. You spoke truth when others stayed silent. You held hope when others turned away. Take this chain. The bird lowered the golden chain, glowing with soft warmth. Let it remind the world that truth binds stronger than lies, that kindness holds longer than greed. The child smiled. The chain wrapped around their wrist, light, not heavy, and shone with a living light. Then the bird turned to the wanderer, tired feet, dust on his hands. Her wings beat slow. Her eyes filled with knowing. You walked roads no one dared to walk. You carried pain that wasn't yours to bear. Take these shoes. The shoes sparkled like moonlight on still water. Walk now in peace. Carry not the weight of others. Let your steps heal what time forgot. The wanderer bowed his head, and for the first time the ground felt soft beneath him. Finally, the bird faced the greedy man, the one who had taken, lied, and laughed. The air grew heavier. Even the wind held its breath. She sang no longer. She spoke. You took more than you gave. You turned blessings into hunger. Now take this millstone. He reached for it, but it grew heavier with every heartbeat. He tried to lift it, and it pulled him down, down to the dust, down to the truth he'd buried. Let it grind your greed into humility, the bird said. Let it remind the world that every act finds its weight. Then she rose. The chain shone bright. The shoes glimmered silver. The millstone turned, slow and steady, like time itself, and her voice faded into the wind. All things return, all deeds come home, all hearts are seen. The juniper-tree stood silently, its branches swaying gently in the breeze, as if whispering blessings over the reunited family. The father knelt on the soft grass, his hands trembling as he held his long-lost son close. The boy, alive and smiling, clutched his sister, Marlene's hand tightly, their joy mingling in a bond stronger than ever before. Tears streamed down the father's face, but they were tears of relief, of gratitude, of renewed hope. "Thank you, little bird," he whispered aloud, "for returning my son, for bringing truth and justice." Marlene laughed through her own tears, her heart light, her spirit free. She placed her brother's hand gently in her own, and together they turned to the home, once shadowed by cruelty, now filled with light. The stepmother's fate had been sealed, her evil deeds finally met with the punishment they deserved. The millstone had fallen, her life ended by the weight of her own malice. No longer could she harm the innocent. Justice, long delayed, had finally been delivered. The villagers whispered of the magical bird, of the juniper-tree, and of the power of truth. They knew that wickedness cannot endure, and that goodness, love, and courage are never forgotten. The father, Marlene, and the boy returned to the house, each step lighter than the last. The home, once heavy with sorrow and fear, now rang with laughter, chatter, and the warmth of love. The golden chain around the father's neck sparkled in the sunlight, a reminder of the magical justice that had come from above. The red shoes adorned Marlene's feet, her dance of joy echoing through the rooms. Even the millstone, now set aside, stood as a lesson for all who would dare harm the innocent. The magical bird had vanished into the sky, its song lingering in the hearts of those who had witnessed the miracle. Its repeated refrain, "Kiwit, kiwit, what a beautiful bird am I," echoed as a promise that goodness and love always prevail, that innocence is protected, and that evil meets its end. Days passed, and the family thrived. The father's grief was replaced by peace, Marlene's sorrow replaced by joy, and the boy's spirit blossomed under the care of those who truly loved him. Neighbors spoke of the juniper-tree with reverence, telling stories of the magical bird and of how justice and love had restored what was lost. In the end, the lesson was clear. Innocence is a treasure to be cherished. Love is a power that can overcome any darkness, and evil, no matter how cunning, cannot endure. The family, reunited and whole, lived under the watchful branches of the juniper-tree, their hearts light, their spirits strong, forever bound by love, courage, and the magic of a bird that brought justice. And so, the story of the juniper-tree concluded, with sorrow transformed into joy, evil defeated, and goodness triumphant. The family rested in peace, safe in the knowledge that love and truth will always prevail, and that every act of cruelty meets its rightful end. There were once two brothers, both soldiers, but when the wars ended, their paths divided. The elder brother grew rich, proud, and full of himself. The younger remained poor, yet kind-hearted and humble. Tired of fighting and hunger, the younger took off his red soldier's coat and picked up a gardener's spade. He worked hard, day after day, turning soil, planting seeds, hoping for a better life. Among his turnips, one began to grow larger than the rest, and it kept growing and growing until it was the biggest turnip anyone had ever seen. It filled a cart. 2 oxen could barely pull it. The poor gardener stared at it in wonder. "What shall I do with this?" he said. "It's too big to eat, too strange to sell." Then, with a humble heart, he decided to take the great turnip and offer it to the king, a gift of gratitude from a simple man who had nothing else to give. The poor gardener yoked his oxen, loaded the giant turnip into a cart, and began his slow journey to the royal court. When the king saw the strange sight, his eyes widened in amazement. "What a wonder!" said the king. "Never have I seen such a thing. Tell me, where did this come from?" The gardener bowed low. "It grew in my small field, Your Majesty, by the grace of the earth and the sweat of my hands." The court burst into whispers. Some laughed, others stared in awe. But the king saw something more. Not the turnip, but the heart behind it. He asked, "Are you a man of fortune?" "No, my lord," the gardener said softly. "I once wore a soldier's coat, but hunger drove me to the soil. I have a brother, rich and known to all, yet no one remembers the poor one." The king's heart softened. "You shall be poor no longer," he said. He ordered gold from the treasury lands from the royal estate and flocks from the royal pastures. The gardener stood speechless. His simple gift had changed his life. The king smiled. "You gave me what no wealth can buy: sincerity." And so, that day, the poor man's humble heart brought him fortune beyond measure. Humility was rewarded, and the kingdom whispered of the man with the giant turnip. Word of the poor gardener's reward traveled fast across the land. His rich brother heard it, and his heart burned with envy. "How can he, a poor man, rise above me?" he muttered, pacing in his grand house. Determined to surpass his brother, he gathered gold, sparkling jewels, and fine horses. He wrapped them in silks and tied them with ribbons, preparing a gift fit for a king. He rode to the palace with pomp and pride, imagining the king showering him with treasures. "Surely now," he thought, "I will be richer, greater, more honored than my brother." The king received the gift graciously. He examined the gold, admired the horses, and weighed the glittering jewels in his hands. Yet a frown crossed his brow. "What shall I give in return?" The king murmured, "I have seen wonders in my time, but nothing compares to a turnip grown with humility and care." The king shook his head gently and returned the gift. The rich brother's eyes widened in shock. "What?" he cried. "Return my offering? How can this be?" Laughter and whispers filled the court. The irony stung. The king could not reward pride as he had rewarded sincerity. Humiliation filled the rich brother's heart. He rode home in silence. His envy now turned to bitter rage. He plotted in the shadows, his mind whirling with wicked ideas. The contrast was clear: humility versus pride, honesty versus greed. And so, the seeds of envy were sown, ready to grow into danger, threatening the very life of the humble gardener. The rich brother's envy twisted into hatred. He could not bear the thought of his poor sibling's fortune. "I will rid myself of him once and for all," he muttered. He hired villains, rough and cruel, promising them gold if they carried out his plan. One morning, he approached his unsuspecting brother. "Dear brother," he said with false warmth, "I have discovered a hidden treasure. Come, let us dig it up and share it together." The gardener, trusting and kind, followed without suspicion. As they walked along a quiet path, the murderers sprang from the shadows. They bound him tightly, placing him in a large sack. His neck and shoulders pressed together, he hung from a tree like a helpless bundle. The villains laughed cruelly, preparing to finish their grim work. But then, a sound. the trampling of hooves on the road. A horseman approached, singing as he rode. The murderers, startled and afraid, hurriedly pushed the sack aside, dangling the gardener from the tree, and ran into the forest, leaving him suspended. The poor man struggled, his heart pounding, and began to work with his hands and feet, digging a hole large enough to poke his head out. Fate, it seemed, had intervened. A clever twist of fortune had spared his life. The rich brother's plan, so carefully laid, was undone by timing and chance. And so the stage was set for a strange and wondrous encounter, one that would challenge both greed and cleverness, and change the course of the story forever. The poor brother, hung in the sack, swayed gently from the tree. He heard the clatter of hooves on the road ahead. A student rode by, cheerful and singing, perched high on his horse. "Good morning," called the man in the sack. The student stopped. "Who speaks from above?" he asked, eyes wide. "I sit in the sack of wisdom," said the brother. "All the knowledge of the world is mine. I see the stars, the winds, the healing of the sick. I know the secrets of birds, of stones, of every simple herb." The student's eyes sparkled with wonder. "To sit in such a sack," he whispered, "to gain such wisdom. Oh, may I trade places for just a little while?" The brother feigned reluctance. "A little, yes," he said, "but you must treat the sack with respect. Sit gently, and you must promise to reward me well." The student agreed eagerly, climbing down from his horse. The brother carefully untied the cord, and the student slipped into the sack head first. "Not like that," said the brother, laughing. He guided him feet first, tied the sack tight, and hoisted it back onto the tree. "Rest here, my friend," he said. "Learn wisdom at your leisure. When you come down, you shall be wiser than the wisest." Then the brother mounted the student's horse. He trotted off down the road, free at last. The student dangled helpless, the sack swinging in the wind. And so the tables turned. The poor brother, once victim, now clever master. The comic twist had begun. Fortune and wit had their day. The poor brother swung into the saddle. He trotted down the road, holding the reins with ease. The student dangled from the tree. "Help! Help me!" he shouted, flailing his arms. "My wisdom, my freedom, someone please!" The brother chuckled softly. "Patience, my friend," he said. "Great knowledge comes with time, and sometimes from unexpected places." The student's face turned red with frustration. "Release me, I beg you," he cried. The brother shook his head, smiling. "Not yet. you asked for wisdom. Here it comes, 1 hour at a time. From below, a few villagers passed, gazing up at the swinging sack. They shook their heads, whispering, "Who would have thought such a sight?" The student called down again, pleading with every word. His song of learning had turned to a cry of folly. The brother rode on, carefree and proud. The sun shone warmly on his back. Every step of the horse seemed to carry him further from danger, and further into clever freedom. Irony was complete. The seeker of knowledge had become the fool. The one once trapped was now master of the moment. Laughter echoed faintly along the road. The poor brother's wit had turned misfortune into triumph, and as he disappeared over the hill, the lesson was clear. Cleverness, patience, and a little humor can turn the tables. The poor gardener rode into his little garden. The sun glinted on the soil he had tended so long. His oxen rested, the turnips stood tall, and the air smelled of earth and quiet triumph. He smiled, thinking of the sack still dangling in the tree. The student had learned a lesson, though in a most unusual way. And the murderous plot of his rich brother? It had come to nothing. The villains had fled, frustrated and unseen. The gardener stepped down, feeling the solid ground beneath his feet. His heart was light. His humble efforts had brought him far more than gold. Cleverness, patience, and a little wit had turned danger into safety. He thought of his brother, who had chased wealth with envy in his heart. All that chasing had led only to frustration and shame. The gardener shook his head with a gentle laugh. "Those who chase gold may find only turnips," he said aloud. "And those who till with patience find peace." Around him, the garden seemed brighter, the turnips taller, the air sweeter. Even the birds seemed to sing in celebration of justice. He entered his home, greeted by his loyal friends and neighbors. They marveled at the story of the giant turnip, the sack of wisdom, and the clever gardener who outwitted fate. And so the tale passed into legend, a story of humility rewarded, of cleverness cherished, and of greed left empty-handed. The gardener looked out once more, smiling at the horizon. His life, though simple, was full, and in that fullness lay the richest treasure of all, peace and the quiet joy of a lesson well learned. Hans waved to his mother. "I'll behave well today," he said. "Behave, Hans," she warned, smiling. Hans skipped down the path to Gretel. "Good day, Gretel," he called. "Good day, Hans," she answered cheerfully. "What have you brought me today?" Hans asked. "Nothing," Gretel laughed, offering a tiny gift. A needle, a knife, a bit of bacon. Each small treasure made Hans's eyes sparkle. He ran home, eager to show his mother. Sometimes things went wrong. The needle stuck in a hay cart, the knife hidden poorly in his sleeve. Every day, Hans learned. Every day, he tried again. Curious, playful, clever in his own way. It was a world of small gifts, laughter, and little adventures. A boy who wanted just a little something given, and who never stopped trying. Hans ran down the lane to Gretel. "Good day, Gretel," he called. "Good day, Hans," she replied, smiling. "Do you have something for me today?" Hans asked eagerly. "I have a gift," Gretel said. First came the needle. Hans stuck it in the hay cart and rushed home. "Where is the needle, Hans?" his mother asked. "It's in the hay," Hans admitted. "Next time, in your sleeve," his mother advised. Hans nodded, determined to do better. Next came the knife. Hans slid it into his sleeve. "Where is the knife?" his mother asked. "In my sleeve," he said proudly. "Better. But next time, the pocket," she corrected. Then Gretel gave him a goat. Hans tied its legs and shoved it in his pocket. By the time he got home, the poor goat had suffocated. "Ah, Hans," his mother sighed, "you should have tied it by the neck." A piece of bacon arrived next. Hans tied it to a rope and dragged it along. Dogs appeared. Hungry dogs. The bacon disappeared in a flurry of barking teeth. "Carry it on your head next time," his mother suggested. Then came the calf. Hans placed it on his head. The calf kicked him in the face. He stumbled home, crying, red-faced, but laughing too. "Better led by the rope to the stall," his mother said calmly. Each day, Hans learned a little. Each day, he tried again. Small gifts, big mistakes, endless lessons. But Hans's curiosity could not be tamed. One day, Gretel offered herself to go along. Hans, clever and mischievous, tied her to a rope. He led her to the rack, bound her there, scattered grass around her. His mother gasped, "Hans, that was ill done." Hans shrugged, mischievous grin on his face. "Never mind," he said. "We'll do better next time." From needles to knives, goats to calves, and finally, Gretel herself, Hans's world of small gifts had grown into chaos. Each attempt, each mistake, each tiny gift taught him, and everyone else, that curiosity, cleverness, and a dash of chaos can turn even the smallest day into a great adventure. Gretel had had enough. With a swift twist and a tug, she freed herself from the rope. "Ha!" she cried, brushing off the scattered grass. Hans blinked, surprised. His clever tricks, which had seemed so amusing, were unraveling. Hans's mother appeared, shaking her head. "Hans, what have you done now?" she asked, exasperated. Hans shrugged, a sheepish grin on his face. "I only wanted a little fun," he said. But the fun had grown too big. The needle, the knife, the goat, the bacon, the calf, and now Gretel herself, all had turned into chaos. Gretel laughed, though it was tinged with anger. "You see, Hans," she said, "cleverness alone cannot solve everything. You must think and care and follow some rules." Hans scratched his head, realizing the truth. Each misadventure had started small. Each gift, each mistake, each little prank had grown because he had acted without thought. Even Hans, the ever-curious, the mischievous, the clever boy, had learned that actions have consequences. His mother nodded, guiding him gently. "Curiosity is good," she said, "but heedfulness matters too. A sharp mind without care can cause more trouble than good." Hans sighed, but a small laugh escaped him. "Yes, Mother," he said. "I see it now. I wanted everything, all at once, without thinking how it might go wrong." Gretel smiled. "You may be clever, Hans, but cleverness must be paired with caution." Hans nodded again, promising to do better. No more stuffing goats in pockets, no more dragging bacon with ropes, no more calves on heads. From that day forward, Hans remained clever. But his cleverness was tempered with care. Playful as ever, but wiser too, he learned to balance fun with responsibility. And so the chaos faded, leaving laughter behind. The small gifts, the great mishaps, the wild adventures, all became lessons Hans would remember forever. Curiosity and cleverness are treasures, but only when paired with thoughtfulness and respect. And in that lesson, Hans found his greatest gift of all, the understanding that cleverness without care is just another way to trip over your own mischief. Once upon a time, deep in the mountains of Switzerland, there lived an old count. He was rich, respected, and wise, but his heart carried a quiet sadness. He had only one son, a gentle boy with bright eyes, but a mind that never seemed to learn. No matter what lesson he was taught, the words slipped away like water through his fingers. The Count tried everything: tutors, books, advice from scholars, but nothing helped. People whispered that the boy was simple. The Count began to believe it too, yet the boy wasn't foolish, only different. He listened to the wind, watched the birds, and smiled at things no one else noticed. Still, his father's patience ran thin. One morning, with a heavy sigh, the Count said, "My son, you must leave. Go learn something worthy of your name." And so, with hope in his heart and tears in his eyes, the boy began his journey. A journey that would teach him the 3 languages no man had ever truly understood. A year passed. The Count waited with weary hope, counting the days until his son's return. At last, the boy came home, cheerful, proud, and glowing with excitement. "Well, my son," said the Count, "tell me, what have you learned?" The boy smiled gently. "Father, I have learned what the dogs say when they bark." The Count froze. His hands trembled. "The dogs?" he repeated. "That is all?" He turned away in anger. "You fool! You waste my gold and your time. Go, find another teacher. Perhaps he can give you sense." And so the boy left again, still calm, still kind, still believing there was meaning in the strange things he heard. Another year passed. In a distant town, under another master, the boy studied quietly. He listened to whispers in the wind and to the flutter of wings at dawn. When he came home, his father met him at the gates. "Well now, what have you learned this time?" The boy's eyes shone. "Father, I have learned what the birds sing in the trees." The Count's face turned red. "The birds? You shame me before the world. Enough of this nonsense. You will go once more, and if you come back with nothing but foolish tales, you will be my son no longer." The boy bowed his head, but said softly, "Yes, Father." So he went again. The 3rd master was patient and kind, and the boy worked in silence. He walked near marshes, listened by the rivers, and sat for hours by the ponds, where frogs croaked in the twilight, and in their voices he began to hear meaning. When the year ended, he returned home. The Count stood waiting, stern and cold. "What have you learned this time?" The boy spoke humbly. "Father, I have learned what the frogs say in the marsh." For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the Count's rage burst like thunder. "Enough! You are no son of mine. Servants, take him to the forest. Do not let him return." The servants obeyed, but pity stirred their hearts. They could not harm him. Instead, they let him go, cutting the eyes and tongue from a deer to fool the Count with proof of his death. And so, under the quiet stars, the boy walked alone, homeless, nameless, but free days turned to weeks. He wandered far until he came upon a fortress where sorrow ruled the land. The word of the castle told him, "In the old tower there are wild dogs. Every night they howl and rage. A man must be given to them, or they devour all they find." The people lived in terror. None dared face the beasts. But the boy only said, "Let me go to them. They will not harm me." They tried to stop him, but he walked calmly into the dark tower. The dogs rushed forward, teeth bared, then stopped. They sniffed, wagged their tails, and whined softly. He spoke to them, not in words, but in understanding. And the dogs told him their secret. They were cursed to guard a treasure buried beneath the tower. Until it was found, they could never rest. The boy listened, nodded, and did as they said. He dug deep into the earth and brought forth a chest of gold. At that very moment, the howling ceased. The curse was broken. When he stepped out, the people gasped. The dogs were gone. The air was still. Peace had returned. The lord of the castle embraced him, saying, "You have done what no man could. Stay here and be as a son to me." And for the first time in his life, the boy felt his strange gift had purpose, a wisdom beyond books, born from kindness and a quiet heart. Seasons passed. The young man lived peacefully in the castle, loved and honored by all. Yet, in the stillness of night, a restlessness stirred within him. He often walked to the edge of the woods and gazed at the far horizon. One morning, he said softly, "I must go. My road is not yet done." The Lord begged him to stay, but the youth only smiled. "Something calls me onward," he said. And so, with a small pack and gentle courage, he set out once more. Days turned to weeks as he crossed fields, valleys, and rivers. At dusk one evening, he came upon a marsh shimmering in gold light. From the reeds rose the chorus of frogs, deep, rhythmic, endless. He listened, and for the first time, their voices spoke clearly in his mind. They sang of Rome, of a great emptiness where the voice of heaven had fallen silent. They croaked of a man who would soon wear the holy crown, a man pure of heart, who understood the tongues of creation. The young traveler's heart quickened. He bowed his head, whispering, "So, that is what you meant." Then he walked on, guided by faith rather than reason, his path lit by the echo of the frog's strange prophecy. When he reached Rome, the city was in mourning. The bells tolled low and heavy. the Pope was dead. Across the land, cardinals gathered, fasting and praying for a sign from heaven. Days passed, but none came. At last, they agreed. The one who bears a divine token shall be chosen to lead us. And at that very hour, the young man, dusty from travel, stepped into the great cathedral. Sunlight poured through stained glass, washing the floor in colors of fire and gold. Then, in the still air, a flutter of wings. 2 white doves descended from the high vaults and settled softly on his shoulders. They did not move, nor did they fear the crowd. Gasps echoed through the church. The cardinals fell to their knees. "This is the sign," they cried. "He is the chosen one." The young man trembled. "Me?" he whispered. "I am no scholar, no priest. I know no Latin prayer." But the doves cooed gently beside his ears, their voices calm as wind through leaves. "Do not fear," they seemed to say. "You were taught by the world itself." Tears filled his eyes, and in humble awe he bowed his head and answered, "If it is heaven's will, then let it be so." They robed him in white and placed the golden crown upon his brow. Incense rose. Bells rang. And the boy, once scorned as foolish, was anointed Pope, the shepherd of souls. When the time came for him to sing the sacred Mass, he stood before the altar, trembling, for he could not read the words. Then, softly, the doves whispered them in his ears. Every phrase, every blessing flowed through him like light, and the congregation listened in awe, for his voice carried a peace no book could teach. From that day on, people said that heaven itself had spoken through him. And the Count, far away in Switzerland, heard tales of a holy man who could speak with the creatures of the earth. And he wept, realizing it was his son. The story ends not with pride, but with wonder. The fool became wise, the outcast became chosen, and the voices of beasts became the language of heaven. Because sometimes wisdom does not come from books or masters, but from listening with the heart. And so the tale whispers its final truth. Those who listen with the heart may learn what the wise never hear. Hey kids, gather around. Once upon a time, there was a poor man. He had 4 sons, lively and full of spirit. He loved them very much, but he had nothing to give them. No gold, no jewels, not even a coin. One evening, he called his sons close and said, "My dear boys, I can't give you riches, but I can give you advice. Go out into the big, wide world. Learn a skill. Try your luck. See what you can do with your own hands. The boys listened carefully, excited, a little nervous, but ready for adventure. Early the next morning, they packed their little bundles, grabbed their walking sticks, hugged their father tightly, and stepped out into the world for the very first time. Soon, they came to a crossroads. 4 paths stretched out in every direction. The eldest brother looked at the others and said, "This is where we must part ways. Let's meet back here in 4 years. Until then, each of us must make our own way." And with that, the 4 clever brothers began their first great adventure. The eldest brother walked along a dusty path, his little bundle on his shoulder, his walking stick tapping the ground with each step. Soon, he met a strange man sitting by the road. "Where are you going, young man?" asked the man. "I want to try my luck in the world," said the eldest, "and I hope to learn some skill that will help me along the way." The man smiled mysteriously. "I can teach you something remarkable," he said. "The cleverest trade of all." The eldest frowned. "What kind of trade?" he asked. "Something dishonest?" "No," he replied. "That is not a life worth living. What good comes of stealing except trouble and danger?" The man laughed softly. "Fear not. I will teach you to take only what no one notices, things that no one wants or sees. You will be clever, silent, and careful. No one will ever know." The eldest thought for a moment, then nodded. "I will try it," he said. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The eldest practiced every trick, every clever move. Nothing escaped him. No lock, no coin, no secret was safe from his keen mind. He became so skilled that even the smallest, hidden things were easy for him to find. Meanwhile, the second brother wandered along another path. He met a wise man who asked, "What do you wish to learn, young one?" "I do not yet know," the second brother replied. "Come with me," said the man, "and I will teach you to read the stars, to see what no one else can see. With this skill, nothing in the sky or on the earth will be hidden from you." The second brother's eyes sparkled with curiosity. He learned carefully, studying the stars and planets, and when his training was complete, the wise man gave him a special glass. "Look through this," he said. "See everything happening, near and far, in the sky and on earth. Nothing will escape your sight." And so, the eldest became a master of cleverness, and the second brother a master of the stars. The third brother wandered through a quiet forest path. Soon he came across a huntsman sharpening his arrows. "Where are you headed, young man?" asked the huntsman. "I want to learn a skill," replied the third brother. "Something useful, something I can master." The huntsman smiled. "Follow me, and I will teach you everything about the woods, about tracking, hunting, and aiming true." Days passed, and the third brother trained hard. He learned to move silently through the trees, to notice the smallest tracks on the forest floor, and to aim with precision at any target. When his training was complete, the huntsman handed him a bow. "This bow," he said, "will guide your arrows true. Whatever you aim at, you will hit without fail." Far away, the youngest brother wandered along a bustling village street. He met a man who asked him, "What would you like to learn, my boy?" "I don't know yet," said the youngest, scratching his head. "I've tried sitting and stitching before, but it never seemed right." The man chuckled. "Ah, you will learn a different kind of craft. Follow me, and I will teach you tailoring like no other. You will be able to mend anything, something soft as a feather or hard as steel. Even the tiniest seams will disappear under your needle." The youngest listened carefully and practiced every day. He learned to handle the needle, to stitch and mend, and soon he could repair anything perfectly. When the time came, the master gave him a special needle. "Use this," he said, "and your work will be flawless." Years passed, 4 years to be exact. Each brother had mastered his craft. The clever thief, the stargazer, the huntsman, and the tailor, all ready to return to the crossroads where their journey began. And so, with their hearts full of hope and their skills finely honed, the 4 brothers began their journey home, eager to reunite and share all they had learned. After 4 long years, the brothers met again at the crossroads. Hugs, laughter, and excited chatter filled the air. Each had learned something amazing. Each had grown in skill and cleverness. Together, they walked back to their father's house. The old man was waiting, curious and proud. "Come, my sons," he said. "I want to see what each of you can do." He pointed to a tall tree. "Look up there," he said. "Tell me how many eggs are in that nest." The second brother, the stargazer, lifted his special glass. He scanned every branch and leaf carefully. A smile appeared on his face. "5 eggs, father," he said confidently. The father turned to the eldest son. "Now, bring the eggs down without waking the bird." The clever thief climbed the tree quietly. He lifted each egg carefully and returned to the ground without the bird noticing a thing. Then the father placed the eggs on the table, 1 on each corner and 1 in the middle, he explained. To the huntsman, "Split them all in 1 shot." The third brother lifted his bow. He aimed carefully, and in a single, perfect shot, all 5 eggs were split. Finally, the father looked at the youngest. "Can you make the eggs whole again?" he asked. The youngest took his needle. He stitched the eggs and the tiny birds together so perfectly, not a crack could be seen. The father's eyes twinkled. "All of you have learned something extraordinary. Look how your skills complement each other. Together, you are unstoppable." The brothers smiled proudly. They knew their skills had grown strong, and that together they could do anything. One day, news spread across the land. The king's daughter had been kidnapped by a mighty dragon. The entire kingdom was in panic. The king mourned day and night and promised that whoever rescued her could have her hand in marriage. The 4 brothers looked at each other. "This is our chance," said the eldest. "Let's see what our skills can do." They agreed at once. Each knew their strength. Each knew their talent. Together, they could face any challenge. The second brother, the stargazer, lifted his glass. He peered into the distance, scanning hills, rivers, and forests. And there she was, the princess, sitting on a lonely rock in the middle of the sea. The dragon was nearby, guarding her. Its huge head rested on her lap as it slept. The brothers quickly made a plan. "I will take her," said the eldest, the clever thief, "and no one will notice a thing." With quiet steps and careful hands, he crept to the rock. Slowly, gently, he lifted the princess. The dragon never stirred. It slept on, unaware of what was happening. The thief carried her safely to the brothers' boat. The princess barely stirred, and a smile of relief spread across her face. The brothers were thrilled. Their plan was working. Each skill was playing its part. The stargazer smiled, watching from afar, knowing they had found her without alerting the dragon. And so, with courage, cleverness, and careful planning, the princess was rescued safely. All thanks to the brothers' extraordinary skills. The dragon woke with a terrible roar. It realized the princess was gone. Flames flickered in its eyes. With a mighty beat of its wings, it rose into the sky and thundered toward the brothers' boat. The huntsman took aim. He pulled back his bow with steady hands. A deep breath, and released the arrow. The dragon let out a final, deafening roar and fell down into the sea with a huge splash. The wave it made tossed the boat around like a toy. The brothers clung to the sides, and the princess held on tight, terrified, but trusting them. The clever thief and stargazer shouted to each other, trying to steady the boat. but it was no use. "Quick! We need help!" cried the youngest brother. The tailor, with his special needle in hand, jumped into action. He worked quickly and skillfully, stitching the broken planks of the boat together, piece by piece. He patched every crack. Every stitch was perfect, holding the wood firmly in place. Within moments, the boat was seaworthy again. The brothers climbed in, the princess safe in the middle. They took a deep breath. The stormy sea had calmed, and the danger from the dragon was gone. With their hearts still racing, they set the sail and guided the boat back to shore. The wind filled their sails just right, as if it knew they were heroes returning. They rowed, they steered, they worked together. The princess looked at them with gratitude in her eyes. "She is safe because of you," she said softly. Finally, after a long journey, they reached the castle where the king waited. He ran to see his daughter, relieved beyond words. The brothers smiled, knowing their skills had saved her, and that their teamwork had overcome every danger. When the princess was safely back in the castle, the king called the 4 brothers to him. "Brave sons," he said, "you have done an incredible thing. You have rescued my daughter from the dragon. Now tell me, who deserves to marry her?" The brothers looked at one another. Each thought of his own part in the adventure. "I found her first," said the stargazer. "If I had not spotted her from afar, none of the rest could have done anything." "No," said the eldest, the clever thief. "I carried her away from the dragon without waking it. If I had not acted, she would still be trapped." The huntsman stepped forward. "And I killed the dragon before it could harm anyone. Without me, all of you might have been in danger." The youngest, the tailor, spoke quietly but firmly. "And if I had not repaired the boat after the dragon fell, we would have all drowned, and she would have been lost forever." The king stroked his beard thoughtfully. "Each of you is right," he said. "But the princess, she does not wish to marry any of you. Her heart belongs to someone else." The brothers paused. Then the king smiled warmly. "To reward your skills and courage, I will give each of you half a kingdom. You have proven yourselves to be clever, brave, and capable. This way, you all benefit without quarrel or disappointment." The brothers looked at each other and nodded. They understood that this was far better than fighting over a princess. Each had been rewarded for his own skill, and no one's heart was forced. The father was cared for lovingly, and the brothers lived prosperously in their new kingdoms. The princess was safe, happy, and free, and the people of the land celebrated the 4 clever brothers for generations. And so, the story ends with joy, wisdom, and cleverness. Together or apart, the brothers had learned that courage, skill, and teamwork could achieve the impossible. Once upon a time, in a small, peaceful town beside the whispering woods, there lived a kind merchant with his 3 lovely daughters. Their days were simple, filled with laughter, light, and little dreams. One frosty morning, the merchant packed his bags for a long journey. Before he left, he called his daughters close and said, "My darlings, tell me what gifts I shall bring you when I return." The eldest smiled. "Pearls, father, shining and pure." The second laughed softly. "Jewels that sparkle like the sun." But the youngest, Lily, looked down shyly and said, "Just a single red rose, father." Her father chuckled, glancing at the snow outside. "A rose? In winter? That may be hard to find." Still, seeing the hope in her eyes, he nodded. "I'll try, my dear, I promise." And so, with that promise warm in his heart, the merchant set off down the cold, white road, not knowing that one simple rose would soon change all their lives. The merchant's journey was long. He crossed rivers, markets, and snowy roads, searching for gifts his daughters had wished for. Pearls for the eldest, jewels for the second. Those were easy to find. But a single red rose in the heart of winter? Nowhere. Snow kept falling. Town after town he searched, until one night, lost in the forest, he saw a light glowing between the trees. He followed it, hoping for shelter. And there it was, a castle unlike any he'd ever seen. Tall, silent, shimmering under the moon. One half of its garden lay frozen white. The other half was alive, green grass, warm air, and roses, bright as fire. He stepped closer, in disbelief. One perfect rose swayed in the breeze. He thought of Lily's smile and gently picked it. But the moment the stem broke, a roar thundered through the garden. Out of the shadows came a lion, huge, golden, eyes blazing like the sun. "Who dares steal from my garden?" the beast growled. The merchant fell to his knees. I meant no harm," he pleaded. "My daughter wished for a rose. Only one." For a long moment, the lion said nothing. Then his voice softened. "I will spare your life," he said, "on one condition: the first soul that greets you when you return home must come to me." The merchant's heart froze, but he nodded. He had no choice. He rode away through the storm, clutching the rose like a wound. At last, his house came into view. The door flew open, and Lily ran out, laughing, arms wide. "Father, you're home!" The merchant stopped. His face turned pale. Now he understood. He told her everything: the garden, the lion, the promise. Tears filled his eyes, but Lily only smiled, calm and brave. "Father," she said softly, "a promise must be kept. Maybe the lion isn't as cruel as he seems." She took the rose from his trembling hands and looked toward the forest. The journey, her journey, had already begun. The path through the forest was long and still. Lily walked with the rose in her hand, its red petals glowing softly, like it knew the way. When she reached the castle gates, they opened on their own. Golden torches flickered inside, and there, upon the marble steps, stood the lion. He looked fierce, yet his eyes were gentle. "Welcome, Lily," he said. "You have kept your father's promise." Her heart trembled, but she bowed her head. "If I must stay, I will. I am not afraid." From that moment, the castle came alive. The walls whispered her name. The servants, lions, wolves, foxes, bowed to her with kindness. Days passed, quiet and strange. By daylight, she lived among beasts. But when the sun went down, magic stirred. The lion became a man, a prince, tall and kind, with eyes that held both sorrow and hope. "This is my curse," he told her. "By day, I wear this shape. By night, I live as myself. Only love freely given can break the spell." And Lily loved him, not for his face, but for his heart. They were married in the moonlit hall. Golden lights danced on the walls, and music filled the air. The forest, the beasts, even the stars seemed to bless their vows. Time moved gently after that. Each morning, she woke to find her husband gone, the lion roaming the woods. Each evening, he returned, smiling, human once more. Their love grew deep and quiet, like a song that never ended. Then one night, the prince said softly, "Your eldest sister is to be married. If you wish to see your family, my lions will lead you there." Her eyes lit up. She kissed him and promised to return before dawn. The journey was safe. Her family wept with joy. They had thought her lost forever. When the feast ended, she returned, her heart full and warm. But soon came news, another wedding. Her second sister. This time, Lily took the prince's hand. "Come with me," she begged. He hesitated. "If a single torchlight touches me, my curse will deepen. I'll turn into a dove and be lost for 7 years." She promised to protect him. She promised no light would fall, and at last he agreed. The wedding hall was alive with music and light. Guests laughed, torches burned bright, and joy filled the air. But in one far corner of the castle, behind heavy doors, all was quiet. Lily sat beside her husband in the dark. She had chosen the safest room. Thick walls, no windows, a place where no light could find him. "Just until the feast ends," she whispered. "Then we'll go home." The prince smiled, his hand resting over hers. Hours passed. The sound of drums echoed faintly through the halls. And then, a spark. No one noticed a thin crack in the door, just a sliver. But through it, a single beam of torchlight slipped and touched the prince's shoulder. In an instant, the room filled with white light. The air shimmered. When it cleared, he was gone. In his place fluttered a dove, pure white, trembling, and sad. "Lily," the dove said softly, "my time has come. For 7 years, I must wander the world. But wherever I fly, I will leave behind a white feather. Follow it, and one day you'll find me again." And before she could speak, he was gone, soaring into the night. Lily ran outside, calling his name. Her voice echoed across the fields, lost to the wind. Then, from above, a single feather drifted down, pale and shining in the moonlight. She picked it up, pressed it to her heart, and began to walk. Days turned into months, months into years. She crossed valleys wrapped in fog, climbed mountains dusted with snow, wandered through forests where no path existed. And always, somewhere ahead, another white feather floated down. People she met along the way offered her rest, food, comfort. But she would only smile and shake her head. "I can't stop," she'd say. "He's still out there." 7 years is a long time, but love, real love, doesn't count the days. So she walked on, through storm and sun, never looking back, one step at a time, one feather at a time, until even the wind seemed to whisper her name, a name carried by faith, by sorrow, and by a promise that still lived on the wings of a dove. 7 long years passed. Seasons came and went. And still, Lily followed the trail of white feathers. Then one morning, she looked up and saw nothing. No feather, no dove, just empty sky. For the first time, her heart faltered. She stood on a lonely road, unsure where to turn. But Lily wasn't one to give up. If she could not find the dove, she would find someone who could. So she lifted her face to the burning sky and called, "O sun, you see every hill and every valley. Have you seen my white dove?" The sun blazed brighter, warm and kind. "I have not seen him," it said, "but take this casket. When your darkest hour comes, open it, and it will help you." She thanked the sun and walked on. When night fell, she turned her eyes upward once more. "O moon," she whispered, "you shine through forests and seas. Have you seen my white dove?" The moon glowed silver and gentle. "I have not seen him," it said softly. "But take this egg, break it when your need is greatest, and it will guide you." Lily bowed low and journeyed on until the wind rose, whistling through the trees. She lifted her voice again. "O night wind, you travel the whole world. Have you seen my white dove?" The night wind circled around her, cool and restless. "I have not," it sighed, "but I will ask my brothers." Then came the east wind, the west wind, and last, the south wind. And the south wind said, "Yes, I have seen him." Lily's heart leapt. "He has crossed the Red Sea," said the south wind, "and become a lion once more. There he battles a dragon, a princess still under spell, who seeks to claim him forever." The night wind spoke again, its voice low and steady. "Go to the Red Sea. On the right shore stand many rods. Count 11. Break the 11th and strike the dragon with it. Then both spell and sorrow shall end." The wind swirled once more and placed a small nut in her hand. "When you cross the sea, cast this into the water," it said. "It will save your life." Lily closed her fingers around the nut, her heart burning with hope. The long journey wasn't over, but at last she knew where to go. The wind carried her far, over deserts and rivers, until she reached the edge of the Red Sea. The air shimmered like fire. Waves rose and fell, roaring like beasts. And there, on the shore, she saw them, a lion and a dragon, locked in battle. Their roars shook the sand. Sparks flew where claws struck scales. Each fought with fury, as though the world depended on it. Lily remembered the night wind's words. "Count the rods, take the 11th." She ran along the shore, her heart pounding. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 11. She broke the 11th rod from the ground and, with trembling hands, lifted it high. "Please," she whispered, "let this be enough." Then she struck the dragon. A flash of light burst across the sea, bright as lightning. The dragon cried out once, then fell still. Before Lily's eyes, the beast changed, scales fading, wings dissolving, until a young woman lay upon the sand, the cursed princess, free at last. And beside her, the lion rose and turned human, her prince, whole again. For a heartbeat, joy filled Lily's chest. But before she could run to him, the freed princess moved first. She seized the prince's arm, shouted a word of magic, and from the clouds swooped a griffin, great and terrible, with wings wide as sails. They leapt upon its back and vanished into the sky. Lily fell to her knees. The wind pulled at her hair, the sea roared behind her, but her heart was quiet. "I will not stop," she whispered. "As far as the wind blows, and as long as the rooster crows, I will find him again." And so she walked, through heat, through rain, through endless lands, days blurred into nights, but her vow never broke. At last, she came upon a grand castle, music echoing from its walls, banners fluttering high. A wedding feast was being prepared. Her heart knew before her mind could speak. He was inside. She opened the sun's casket, and from it shone a gown bright as the sunrise, golden threads alive with light. When she entered the palace, every eye turned toward her. The false bride saw the dress and gasped. "I must have it," she said. "It can be yours," Lily replied softly, "for one thing only. Let me spend a single night in the prince's chamber." And so the bargain was made. That night, the grand castle was glowing with music and laughter. The false bride sat proudly beside the prince, though his eyes were dull, his heart far away. When the feast ended, Lily was quietly led to his chamber. She stood by his bedside, watching him sleep. Her voice trembled, but she spoke. "Do you remember, my love, the garden where the rose bloomed in winter? The nights we shared beneath the stars? The promise we made by the Red Sea?" She told him everything. Their journey, her search, her love that never faded. But he did not stir. The false princess had given him a potion, deep as dreamless night. Morning came, and Lily was sent away, her heart breaking once more. Yet she didn't give up. The next evening, she opened the moon's gift, a shining egg that cracked with a soft glow. Out stepped a golden hen, followed by 12 tiny chicks, each feather shimmering like firelight. The false bride saw them and gasped. "I must have them," she cried. "They can be yours," Lily said calmly, "if I may spend just one more night with the prince. The bargain was struck. That night, she entered his room again, and this time, the prince had refused the potion. As she began to speak, his eyelids fluttered. He heard her voice, soft, familiar, filled with love and sorrow. "Lily," he whispered. She ran to him, tears shining in her eyes. The spell that bound his heart shattered like glass. They embraced, no words, no magic, only the truth of what they had endured. Before dawn, they escaped. Outside, the griffin waited, the same beast that once carried him away. Together, they climbed onto its back, and it soared into the sky. Over the Red Sea they flew, the wind roaring beneath their wings. Lily opened the nut the night wind had given her, and from it grew a great tree, rising from the waves, its branches wide and safe. There they rested, hand in hand, hearts finally free. When they returned home, their castle stood waiting, and their child ran to meet them. The curse was gone, the shadows lifted, and so they lived, side by side, where love had conquered every spell, happily ever after. The sun had just begun to rise over the quiet farm. In the stable stood an old horse. His coat had lost its shine. His legs trembled, but his heart remained loyal, faithful to every task he had done over the years. The farmer looked at him. He saw only weakness. "You are no longer of use," he said coldly. "You may return only when you are stronger than a lion." The stable door creaked open. The horse stepped out. Rain began to fall lightly. Each drop felt colder than the last. He wandered slowly into the forest. His head hung low. Every step echoed sorrow and loss. The trees whispered in the wind. The forest seemed vast and unkind. And there he was, alone, a loyal servant, abandoned. Yet still, his spirit carried a quiet hope, though it was buried deep beneath the weight of sadness. The horse wandered deeper into the damp forest. Raindrops fell from the trees, dotting his tired coat. He moved slowly, each step heavy with sorrow. Suddenly, a fox appeared, stepping lightly over wet leaves. "Hey there, friend," said the fox, his voice bright and curious. "Why do you look so sad, carrying the weight of the world?" The horse sighed. "My master has forgotten me," he said. "He no longer wants me because I am old and weak. I served him faithfully for years, and now he mocks my frailty." The fox twitched his ears and grinned. "Don't worry, old friend," he said. "I have a trick sharper than a lion's teeth. The horse blinked, hope flickering in his eyes. "Lie down," the fox instructed. "Stretch your legs, stiff as a tree. Play dead, and I will handle the rest." The horse obeyed, lying still on the forest floor. Quick as the wind, the fox darted to a nearby cave. There, a lion lounged, yawning. "Good day, mighty beast," said the fox, bowing slightly. "A fresh meal awaits you. A dead horse not far from here." The lion's eyes gleamed. He followed the fox eagerly, imagining the feast. "Now, for your comfort," the fox said slyly. "I'll tie you to the horse's tail. It will make moving him easier." The lion crouched patiently as the fox tied his legs firmly. Not a sound escaped the horse, who waited silently. And just like that, the plan was set. The fox's cleverness had the forest holding its breath. The fox leaned close and whispered a quick signal. Suddenly, the horse sprang to his hooves. The ground shook beneath him as he galloped forward, muscles coiling and releasing in a powerful rhythm. The lion roared in shock and fury. Birds scattered from the trees, their wings beating a frantic rhythm across the sky. The horse moved steadily, dragging the roaring lion behind him. Branches whipped past. The forest echoed with the clash of hooves and furious growls. Yet the horse remained calm, focused, clever. Across fields and meadows, he carried his captive toward the farm. Villagers peered from fences, astonished at the sight. A mighty lion dragged gently yet firmly by an old horse. At last, he reached his master's yard. The farmer stepped out, eyes wide with disbelief. His heart softened as he watched the loyal old horse stand tall, triumphant. "Forgive me," the farmer said quietly. "You have shown more courage and wisdom than I ever imagined." The horse nuzzled the farmer, calm and dignified. Warm hay awaited him in the stable. He ate slowly, savoring the comfort he had earned. The rain had stopped, and a golden sunset spilled across the farm. And so, the horse lived the rest of his days, safe, cherished, and well-fed. Those who serve with loyalty deserve kindness in return. Even the humblest heart can outsmart the proudest beast. The forest grew quiet again. All was at peace. The battlefield lay silent. Smoke drifted over broken carts and abandoned weapons. A soldier walked slowly through the aftermath. His body was wounded, his arms and legs aching, yet his heart had served the king faithfully for many years. The war was over. The king looked at him coldly. "You may return home," he said. "I need you no longer, and you will receive no more pay." The soldier bowed his head. He did not know how to earn a living. Troubled, he wandered all day. Sunset came. Shadows stretched across the empty fields. Night fell, and the soldier entered a dark forest. A flickering blue light glimmered in the distance. Curious, he approached. Soon, he reached a small, mysterious house. Inside lived a witch. "Please," he said, voice low, "give me one night's lodging and a little food and drink." The witch laughed, sharp and cruel. "Who gives anything to a runaway soldier?" But after a pause, she agreed, with conditions. Tasks awaited him, hard and strange. The soldier nodded. He would do as she asked. Nervous, yet a spark of hope stirred in his chest. The witch looked at the soldier with a sly smile. "You may stay," she said, "if you do exactly as I command." Her first task was hard. "Dig around my garden," she ordered. The soil was thick and heavy. The sun beat down. The soldier worked all day, muscles aching. By evening, the pit was far from finished. The witch shook her head. "You cannot finish today," she said. "Then you will stay another night. Tomorrow, you must chop this wood into tiny pieces." The soldier took the axe. He swung it again and again. Splinters flew. Arm tired, back stiff, sweat running down his face. By sunset, the pile was done. Still, he did not complain. The witch paused and leaned close. "Tomorrow," she said, "your task will be simple. Retrieve the blue light from the old well behind my house. But beware, it burns continuously, and it is mine by right." The soldier nodded. He listened carefully. He could see her cunning, her desire to trick him. At dawn, she led him to the well. She lowered him in a basket. The blue light shimmered below. Just as he reached for it, the witch stretched her hand. "Give it to me now," she demanded. "No," said the soldier firmly. "I will not hand it over until my feet are on solid ground." The witch hissed in anger and turned away. The soldier smiled quietly, knowing cleverness and patience were his greatest weapons. The soldier sat by the glowing blue light. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his pipe. Lighting it carefully, he took a long, slow draw. The smoke curled into the air, and then a small figure appeared. A little black dwarf, bowing low. "Lord, what are your commands?" he asked. The soldier blinked. "You will obey me?" "Yes, my lord," said the dwarf. "I will protect you. I will do all you order." The soldier smiled. "Then help me out of this well," he said. The dwarf took his hand. Together, They walked through a hidden passage beneath the earth. The blue light glimmered safely in the soldier's hand. Treasures lay scattered in secret chambers. Gold coins, sparkling jewels, precious trinkets. The soldier gathered as much as he could carry, careful, quiet, clever. When they reached the surface, the soldier turned to the dwarf. "Bind the witch," he commanded. "Take her to the judge." The dwarf moved like lightning. The witch screamed. She rode a wild tomcat, furious and frantic. But the dwarf was faster. He bound her tightly and brought her before the authorities. The judge acted swiftly. The witch was punished. Her plans were foiled. Her power was gone. The soldier stood tall, heart racing. He had conquered cunning with cleverness. The forest was calm again. He was no longer powerless. Night fell over the town. The soldier smoked his pipe. The little black dwarf appeared. "Bring the princess to my house," the soldier commanded. "In her sleep," he added quietly. Moments later, she was there, unaware, silent. The soldier gave his orders. "Sweep the floor, clean the room, fetch the broom." She obeyed, moving quietly, her eyes half closed. The soldier leaned back, stretching his feet. "Now," he said, "pull off my boots, shine them well." The princess obeyed. Not a word, not a struggle. The king was not asleep. He devised clever traps, pockets of peas, a hidden shoe. He hoped to catch the soldier in the act, but the dwarf was cleverer. He scattered peas in every street. The hidden shoe left no trace. The soldier's plan worked perfectly. Night after night, the princess performed the tasks. She returned to her bed at dawn, exhausted but unharmed. The soldier observed quietly. Clever, patient, triumphant. With each night, his power grew. The king's traps failed. The princess remained unaware, and the soldier's cunning dominance became clear. He was clever, patient, and fully in control. The town slept. The soldier smiled. He had outwitted the king, the princess, and all who tried to stop him. The soldier was caught. Guards dragged him to the dungeon. Chains clinked around his wrists and ankles. He stood at the window, looking out at the town he had once roamed freely. The king had condemned him to death. A cold sentence. Yet the soldier remained calm. "May I smoke one last pipe?" he asked. "You may smoke 3, said the king, sneering, "but do not think I will spare your life." The soldier smiled faintly. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out his pipe. He lit it at the blue light he still carried. The smoke curled upward, twisting and curling in the dim dungeon air. Suddenly, the little black dwarf appeared, swift, silent, powerful. "Lord," said the dwarf, "what are your commands?" The soldier's eyes sparkled with resolve. "Strike down the false judge and the constables," he said, "and spare not the king who treated me so unjustly." The dwarf bowed. His tiny hands gripped a small cudgel. He moved like lightning, unseen shadows dancing in the torchlight. The dungeon trembled with the speed of his strikes. The soldier leaned back against the wall, calm. His cleverness had not failed him. The dwarf was ready. The unjust would be punished, and the soldier would finally claim his victory. The dwarf moved like a shadow, silent, swift, deadly. He struck with a small cudgel, lightning fast, precise, magical. Each blow sent the judge sprawling. The constables fell, one after another, unable to rise. The king's eyes widened in terror. He backed away, stumbling over the palace floor. "Mercy, please," he cried. His voice shook with fear. But the soldier remained calm. He leaned against the wall, watching. Powerful, clever, unmoved. The dwarf continued his work. No one could escape his swift justice. The room trembled with the sound of rapid strikes. The king, judge, and constables realized their fate. They had wronged the loyal soldier. Now, justice was delivered. Outside, the town lay silent. Inside, the soldier's cleverness shone. He had used patience, wit, and the magical aid of the dwarf to turn the tables. The wronged were avenged, the guilty punished. Finally, the dwarf stopped. He bowed to the soldier. "All is done, my lord," he said. "The wicked are dealt with." The soldier straightened. A calm smile crossed his face. He had triumphed. Cleverness, courage, and loyalty had won. The tension eased. The injustice was over. The chaos ended. The dwarf vanished. Only the soft blue light remained. The soldier stood tall. Chains were gone. He was free. The king fell to his knees. "Spare me!" he cried. The soldier nodded. Justice had been served. Mercy had its place. The town rejoiced. News spread fast. The clever soldier had outwitted the cruel and proud. He was given the kingdom. And the princess, gentle, kind, wise, became his wife. Life returned to peace. Evenings were calm. The soldier sat by the fire, smoking his pipe. The blue light glimmered softly nearby. It reminded him, cleverness and courage can overcome injustice. Patience and wit are powerful allies. The princess smiled. Together, they ruled wisely. The people were happy. The kingdom thrived. And so, the story ended. Quietly, calmly. A tale of loyalty, cleverness, and courage. Where the wronged rise and the patient are rewarded. A perfect ending. The queen sighed. Her little daughter wouldn't sit still. She laughed. She ran. She cried. All at once. "I wish you were a raven," the queen exclaimed. In a flash, it happened. The child shimmered. Fingers turned to black wings. Tiny wings flapped. And she was gone, out the open window, flying into the dark forest. The queen gasped. The king paced. Their hearts ached. Where had she gone? Deep in the forest, a man walked alone. He heard a voice, a clear, strange voice. "Help me," it called. "I am a king's daughter, trapped by magic. You can free me if you dare." The raven told him what to do. Go to the old woman's house. Do not eat, do not drink. Wait at the appointed hour. The man's heart raced. It would be dangerous. It would be hard. But he nodded. He would try. He would save her. The man walked through the forest. He kept the raven's words in mind. Do not eat. Do not drink. Stay awake. Wait at the appointed hour. Soon, he reached a small house. An old woman stood at the door. "Come in, poor man," she said. "Rest. Have food. Have drink." I cannot," he replied. "I must not eat. I must not drink." She smiled, sly and patient. "Just one sip," she urged. "Just one bite. It will do no harm." He hesitated. The temptation was strong. He gave in. Sleep swallowed him whole. The raven arrived, drawn by the appointed hour. She circled the garden, calling. But the man slept on. She could do nothing. The next day, he tried again. Again, the old woman pressed food and wine. Again, fatigue overcame him. He drifted into sleep. The raven came, frustrated, saddened, powerless. The third day arrived. He stood firm at first. He resisted longer. But the old woman was persistent. Once more, he faltered. Sleep took him. When he awoke, he found gifts beside him. A loaf of bread, a flask of wine that never emptied, a golden ring, and a letter. The raven had left instructions. She explained the next step. The journey was far from over. The man breathed deep, determined. He would not fail again. The man set out once more. Forest shadows stretched long. He wandered for days. Branches scratched. Feet ached. Hope flickered, then dimmed. A giant appeared. Huge, towering. "Why do you wander here, little man?" he bellowed. The man bowed. "Please, help me find the golden castle of Stroberg. I must free the raven." The giant frowned. "Maps?" he asked. Together they searched. Old maps. New maps. Nothing. The castle was nowhere to be found. Days passed. Finally, the giant offered help. "I can carry you close," he said. 2 hours of flight. Then you must walk the rest. The man clutched the gifts from the raven, steeled himself. He arrived at the glass mountain. Its slopes shone, slick and impossible. Each attempt to climb ended in a slide. He watched the maiden from afar, day after day, year after year, patient, quiet. One morning, he noticed 3 robbers fighting. He approached. They possessed wonders: a stick that opened any door, a cloak that made one invisible, a horse that could leap any obstacle. The man tested them. The stick worked. The cloak hid him. The horse carried him across rugged ground, finally ready. The path to the castle lay open. The maiden awaited. The man took a deep breath. The final stage was near. The man mounted the magical horse. Its hooves barely touched the glassy slopes. Up, up, up he climbed. The mountain glimmered. Cold wind whipped. He held the stick tightly, wrapped the cloak around him. Invisible, silent. Nothing could stop him now. The castle gate loomed ahead, closed. He tapped the stick. Click. It swung open. Inside, the maiden sat, golden goblet in hand. She could not see him. Not yet. Carefully, he approached, slipped the ring into her goblet. It rang softly. She paused. Recognition. Her heart whispered. He was near. The man watched. Every window, every door. No danger should touch her. The path was clear. He mapped his next moves, step by step. The cloak hid him. The stick opened any barrier. The horse waited. Outside, the wind carried the faintest sounds. He prepared, ready to call the maiden forth, to free her from enchantment. The castle held its breath. The mountain sparkled. Time slowed. Then the final act began. The man dropped the cloak. He was visible at last. He dismounted the horse, stepped forward, heart pounding. The maiden looked up. Her eyes widened. Recognition and joy. He took her hands. She smiled. He embraced her. Warmth. Relief. Happiness. The golden goblet trembled in her hand. But now, no fear, only freedom. Now you are safe, he whispered, and free at last. The castle gates opened wide. Servants peeked. Birds circled above. Word spread fast. The kingdom rejoiced. Bells rang, drums beat, music echoed. The king smiled. The queen wept. Joy filled every hall. The man and maiden walked together. Sunlight glimmered on the glass mountain. Every step felt lighter. A grand celebration began. Laughter, dancing, feasts. All troubles faded. Magic, danger, and fatigue vanished. And in the quiet moments, they remembered. Courage had carried them. Patience had guided them. Cleverness had set them free. The castle rested. Peace settled. The wind whispered through the trees. A story of trials, a story of triumph, a story of a raven's curse. Broken by a faithful heart, the man and maiden, together at last, smiled toward the future. The mountain sparkled, the kingdom sang, and all was well.